Let me tell you something today. One decision, just one. That's all it takes to change your entire life. Not 1,000 steps, not perfect timing, not having everything figured out. Just one brave decision. There was a woman who was tired of surviving, tired of waking up every day feeling empty, stuck, and afraid. She had dreams, but fear was louder. She had talent, but doubt was stronger. She had potential, but comfort was keeping her small. Every day looked the same. And every night she went to bed wondering, is this all my life is ever going to be? But one day something inside her shifted. She made a decision. Not a big public announcement, not a perfect plan, just a quiet, powerful decision. I'm not living like this anymore. And that decision changed everything. She decided to stop waiting for permission. She decided to stop listening to people who didn't believe in her. She decided to stop doubting herself. She chose courage over comfort, faith over fear, action over excuses. Now listen to me carefully. The moment you make a real decision, the universe moves, God moves, opportunities start lining up, doors you never imagined begin to open. But first, you must decide. Let me tell you something. One single decision can change the entire direction of your life. Not 10 decisions, not a perfect plan, not waiting until everything makes sense. Just one moment where you say to yourself, enough is enough. There was a woman who spent most of her life playing small. She had dreams that lived quietly inside her heart, but she was too afraid to let them breathe. Every morning she woke up, went through the same routine, faced the same problems, and carried the same doubts. She wanted more, but fear kept whispering, stay where you are. At least it's safe here. She watched other people chase their dreams while she stood on the sidelines, convincing herself that her time would come someday. But deep down, she felt stuck. She felt invisible. She felt like life was passing her by. She was tired of surviving. She wanted to live. She wanted to feel purpose. She wanted to wake up excited instead of exhausted. One night, sitting alone with her thoughts, she realized something painful. If she kept living the same way, nothing would ever change. That realization hit her harder than any failure ever had. In that moment, she made a decision, not a loud one, not one filled with applause, just a quiet promise to herself that she would no longer settle for less than what she was capable of. She didn't know how she would do it. She didn't have all the answers. She didn't even have a full plan. But she had belief, and belief was enough to take the first step. The next morning, she woke up different, not because her situation had changed, but because her mindset had. She started doing small things differently. She stopped talking herself out of opportunities. She stopped waiting for people to approve her choices. She stopped letting fear decide her future. Every day, she pushed herself a little harder than before. Some days she felt strong. Other days she was scared. Some days she felt confident. Other days she wanted to quit, but she kept moving forward. There were setbacks. There were moments when everything seemed to fall apart. Times when she questioned her decision and wondered if she had made a mistake. But even in those moments, she reminded herself why she started. She reminded herself of the pain of staying stuck. She reminded herself that growth always feels uncomfortable before it feels rewarding. Slowly, things began to change. New opportunities started appearing. New people entered her life. Doors opened where walls once stood. She began to discover strengths she never knew she had. Confidence grew inside her, replacing the fear that once controlled her. She started trusting herself. She started believing in her worth. She started walking with purpose instead of hesitation. The same woman who once doubted every step now walked with courage. The same woman who once waited for permission now created her own path. The same woman who once felt powerless now stood in her power. Her life didn't change overnight, but it changed because she refused to stop. She learned that comfort is the enemy of progress. That fear is just a test of how badly you want something. That failure is not the opposite of success, but a part of it. Every challenge made her stronger. Every setback made her wiser. Every struggle taught her a lesson she needed for the next level of her journey. And the biggest lesson she learned was that the moment you truly decide, everything shifts. Your mindset shifts, your energy shifts, your actions shift. And when your actions shift, your life has no choice but to change. That one decision rewrote her story. It turned her pain into purpose, her fear into fuel, and her doubt into determination. She stopped asking, what if I fail? And started asking, what if I succeed? She stopped imagining worst-case scenarios and started believing in best-case outcomes. She stopped waiting for the perfect time and started using the time she had. Let me tell you something powerful today. One decision, just one. That's all it takes to change an entire life. Not 1,000 plans, not perfect timing, not waiting until everything makes sense. Just one brave, honest decision made from the heart. People think life changes with big miracles, but the truth is, life changes in quiet moments when a person finally says, I'm done living like this. There was a woman who lived in survival mode for years. She woke up tired, went to sleep tired, and carried stress in her spirit every single day. On the outside, she looked normal. On the inside, she was exhausted, confused, and empty. She had dreams she never talked about, talents she never used, a future she never believed she deserved. She kept telling herself, one day I'll change, but one day never came. Fear kept her frozen. Comfort kept her trapped. Doubt kept her small. Every day looked the same. Same routines, same people, same problems, same excuses. And every night, her mind asked the same question, is this really my life forever? But instead of changing, she stayed where she was because staying felt safer than trying. Staying felt familiar. Staying felt easier than risking failure. Then one day, nothing dramatic happened. No miracle, no big event, no speech, no motivation video. Just a quiet moment where something inside her broke and healed at the same time. She looked at her life and said, I can't do this anymore. Not out loud, not to anyone else, just to herself. And that moment changed everything. She made a decision, not a perfect decision, not a fully planned decision, just a real one, a deep one, an honest one. She decided to stop accepting a life that was killing her spirit. She decided to stop shrinking herself for others. She decided to stop waiting for permission. She decided to stop living in fear. That decision didn't remove the fear. It didn't remove the problems. It didn't remove the obstacles, but it changed her direction. And sometimes direction is more important than speed. She started small, one step, one choice, one action. Some days she doubted herself. Some days she felt weak. Some days she wanted to quit. Some days she cried. Some days she failed. But she kept moving because when a decision is real, quitting is no longer an option. Slowly, her mindset changed, her confidence changed, her energy changed, her environment changed, the people around her changed, the opportunities around her changed. Not because life became easy, but because she became stronger. The same woman who once felt powerless now felt capable. The same woman who once felt lost now had direction. The same woman who once felt invisible now had presence. All because of one decision. See, life doesn't change when you wish. Life doesn't change when you complain. Life doesn't change when you wait. Life changes when you decide. When you choose growth over comfort. When you choose courage over fear. When you choose action over excuses. Most people don't fail because they can't succeed. They fail because they never decide. They stay stuck in someday. Someday I'll start. Someday I'll try. Someday I'll change. But someday is a lie. Someday is fear in disguise. Real change starts when you say now. Now I move. Now I try. Now I grow. Now I become. That one decision didn't make her life perfect, but it made it purposeful. It didn't remove pain, but it gave her strength. It didn't remove struggle, but it gave her direction. It didn't remove fear, but it gave her courage to walk through it. And that's how lives change, not in comfort, not in safety, not in excuses, but in decisions. One decision, one choice, one moment of courage, one step of faith. Let me tell you something real. Most people are only one decision away from a completely different life, but fear keeps them standing still. They wake up every day with dreams in their hearts and doubt in their minds. They want more, but they stay where they are because it feels safe. They convince themselves that tomorrow will be better, that someday things will change, that one day they will become the person they imagine. But days turn into months, months into years, and life quietly slips away. There was a woman who lived exactly like this. On the outside, she looked fine. She smiled, worked, took care of responsibilities, and did what was expected of her. But inside, she felt trapped. She felt like she was living someone else's life, following rules she never agreed to, chasing goals that never belonged to her. Every night, she lay awake thinking about the life she wanted, the risks she was too afraid to take, and the potential she was slowly burying. She was scared of failure. She was scared of judgment. She was scared of disappointing people. She was scared of making the wrong choice. So she made no choice at all, and that became her biggest mistake. Because staying still is also a decision, and it often leads to regret. One day, after another long and exhausting day, she looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. The light in her eyes was fading. The hope in her heart was weakening. And in that quiet moment, she understood something deeply. If she didn't change, nothing would. No one was coming to save her. No one was coming to fix her life. It was up to her. That was the moment she decided. Not with a perfect plan, not with confidence, not with certainty, but with honesty. She admitted she was scared. She admitted she was lost. She admitted she was tired of pretending. And then she chose to move forward anyway. Her first steps were shaky. She doubted herself constantly. She questioned every move. She wondered if she was being foolish, if she was risking too much, if she was chasing an illusion. But deep down, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, hope. She started doing things that scared her. She spoke up when she used to stay silent. She tried when she used to hesitate. She believed when she used to doubt. And every small act of courage began to rebuild her confidence. There were days when she failed. Days when nothing worked. Days when she wanted to run back to her old life. Days when fear screamed louder than faith. But she kept reminding herself that comfort had already cost her too much. She had lost time. She had lost joy. She had lost belief in herself. She refused to lose her future too. Slowly, her life began to change, not because the world became kinder, but because she became stronger. She started to attract opportunities that once felt impossible. She met people who supported her growth. She found purpose in places she never thought to look. She discovered strengths she never knew existed inside her. The woman who once felt invisible now stood tall. The woman who once hid her voice now spoke with power. The woman who once lived in fear now walked in courage. Her journey was not easy, but it was meaningful. Every struggle taught her resilience. Every setback taught her patience. Every challenge taught her faith. She learned that failure is not the end, but a lesson. That fear is not a stop sign, but a signal to grow. That doubt is not weakness, but an invitation to trust herself. And most importantly, she learned that the hardest part of any journey is the decision to begin. That one decision didn't just change her circumstances, it changed her identity. She no longer saw herself as weak, broken, or stuck. She saw herself as capable, brave, and worthy. She stopped waiting for validation and started trusting her own voice. She stopped looking for rescue and started becoming her own hero. And that is how lives transform. Not through luck, not through miracles, but through decisions made in moments of pain, honesty, and courage. Let me speak to you from the heart for a moment. Most people spend their entire lives waiting for the right time, the right sign, the right moment. They tell themselves that when things get easier, when money improves, when fear disappears, then they will finally chase their dreams. But the truth is, the right time never comes. Life only changes when a person decides that staying the same is more painful than changing. There was a woman who lived with this struggle every single day. She carried dreams inside of her that no one else could see. She had ideas, hopes, and visions of a better life, but she was too afraid to move. Fear wrapped itself around her thoughts and whispered all the reasons she should stay exactly where she was. It reminded her of past failures, of people who doubted her, of mistakes she had made. And slowly she began to believe those voices more than she believed in herself. Every morning she woke up feeling heavy. The days felt long and the nights felt empty. She went through the motions, doing what was expected, living a life that looked fine to others but felt meaningless to her. Deep down, she knew she was meant for more, but knowing and doing are two very different things. So she waited. She waited for courage. She waited for confidence. She waited for permission. One night, after a day that drained every ounce of her energy, she sat alone in silence. No distractions, no noise, just her thoughts. And in that stillness, she faced a painful truth. She was afraid to live fully, not because she lacked ability, but because she lacked the belief. And that realization shook her. She understood that if she kept waiting, years would pass, and she would still be standing in the same place, filled with the same regrets. In that moment, she chose differently. She decided that fear would no longer be her leader. She decided that her dreams deserved a chance. She decided that even if she failed, she would fail moving forward, not standing still. It wasn't a confident decision. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was racing. Her mind was full of doubt. But her soul was ready. The first steps were the hardest. Every move felt uncertain. Every choice felt risky. She questioned herself constantly, wondering if she was strong enough, smart enough, worthy enough. But with each small action, something inside her shifted. Courage grew where fear once lived. Hope replaced hesitation. And slowly, she began to trust herself. There were obstacles. There were closed doors. There were moments of deep disappointment, times when she wanted to quit and return to the comfort of her old life. But she remembered how empty that comfort felt. She remembered the pain of regret. And she kept going. She began to notice changes. Her mindset started to expand. Her confidence strengthened. Her perspective widened. She stopped seeing problems as walls and started seeing them as lessons. She stopped seeing failure as defeat and started seeing it as guidance. She learned that growth is uncomfortable, that transformation is messy, and that progress often feels slow before it feels powerful. People around her began to notice the difference. There was a new light in her eyes, a new strength in her voice, a new determination in her steps. The same woman who once doubted every move now walked with purpose. The same woman who once stayed silent now spoke with clarity. The same woman who once felt invisible now carried presence. Her journey was far from perfect, but it was real. Every day she became a little braver. Every challenge made her a little wiser. Every struggle shaped her into someone stronger. She discovered that she was capable of far more than she had ever imagined. And that belief became the foundation of her new life. That single decision didn't erase her problems, but it gave her the power to face them. It didn't guarantee success, but it gave her the courage to try. It didn't promise ease, but it gave her direction. Let me share something with you that can change the way you see your life. Most people think transformation happens when circumstances improve, when money comes, when support appears, or when fear disappears. But real change begins inside, in a quiet moment, when a person decides they are no longer willing to accept a life that drains their spirit. That moment is small, almost invisible, but it carries the power to rewrite everything. There was a woman who spent years living a life that felt too tight for her soul. She followed routines, met expectations, and fulfilled responsibilities, yet deep inside, she felt unfulfilled. Every day felt like a repetition of the last. And every night she lay awake imagining a life that felt freer, brighter, and more meaningful. But fear held her still. She was afraid of making mistakes, afraid of disappointing others, afraid of stepping into the unknown. So she stayed where she was, telling herself that stability was more important than happiness. Over time, that stability began to feel like a prison. She watched her dreams slowly fade, and that hurt more than any failure ever could. She realized that comfort without purpose is a dangerous place to live because it quietly steals your potential while convincing you that you are safe. Her heart longed for growth, but her mind kept pulling her back into familiar patterns. One evening, after a day filled with frustration and exhaustion, she found herself alone with her thoughts. The silence forced her to confront feelings she had been avoiding for years. She admitted to herself that she was unhappy. She admitted that she was afraid. And in that honesty, something powerful happened. She recognized that if she did not change, her life would remain the same. No miracle was coming. No rescue was arriving. The responsibility was hers. So she made a decision. It was not dramatic or loud. It was quiet and personal. She decided to take her life seriously. She decided to trust her inner voice. She decided to move forward even without clarity. That decision did not remove the fear, but it gave her direction. And direction, even in uncertainty, is enough to begin. Her first steps were small and uncertain. She doubted herself often. She stumbled. She questioned whether she was capable of more. But each time she pushed forward, her confidence grew. Every tiny success reminded her that she was stronger than she believed. Every setback taught her resilience. Slowly, she began to rewrite the story she told herself. She stopped saying, "I can't," and started saying, "I'll try." She stopped waiting for perfect conditions and started working with what she had. She stopped shrinking herself to fit into small spaces and started expanding into her potential. The journey was uncomfortable. There were moments of loneliness, moments of confusion, moments of deep fear. But there was also growth. There was discovery. There was a renewed sense of purpose. She began to feel alive again. As time passed, her world changed. Not because everything became easy, but because she became different. Her mindset shifted. Her energy shifted. Her choices shifted. And with those shifts came new opportunities, new connections, and new experiences. She started attracting people who believed in her vision. She started walking into spaces she once felt unworthy of. The woman who once doubted herself now carried quiet confidence. The woman who once hid behind excuses now took responsibility. The woman who once felt lost now had direction. She learned to trust her instincts, to listen to her inner voice, and to honor her dreams. Through every struggle, she discovered strength. Through every challenge, she discovered wisdom. Through every step forward, she discovered her true self. She learned that growth requires discomfort, that transformation requires patience, and that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Let me speak to you with honesty and power. Most people are not trapped by their circumstances. They are trapped by their thinking. They live in fear of change, fear of judgment, fear of failure. And that fear quietly controls their choices. They wake up every day repeating the same routines, facing the same struggles, and carrying the same doubts, all while hoping for a different outcome. But nothing changes because nothing changes inside. There was a woman who lived this way for a long time. She had dreams she barely allowed herself to think about. She had ideas she was afraid to share. She had a vision of a better life, but she kept it locked away because she believed she wasn't strong enough, smart enough, or worthy enough to reach it. So she settled. She accepted less than she deserved and convinced herself that this was just how life was meant to be. Every day felt heavy. She moved through life on autopilot, doing what was necessary but never what inspired her. She watched others step into their purpose and wondered why she felt so far behind. At night, her mind filled with questions, regrets, and quiet tears. She told herself she would try one day, but deep down, she feared that one day would never come. Then, in a moment of deep exhaustion, something inside her finally broke. She realized she was tired of living small, tired of hiding her potential, tired of betraying her own dreams. She understood that the pain of staying the same had become greater than the fear of change. And in that moment, she made a decision that would reshape her entire life. She chose to believe in herself even when doubt screamed in her ear. She chose to move forward even when she felt unprepared. She chose to take responsibility for her happiness instead of waiting for someone else to provide it. That decision did not erase her fears, but it weakened their grip. It reminded her that courage is not about being fearless, but about acting despite fear. The first steps were terrifying. She questioned every move. She wondered if she was making a mistake. She worried about what people would think. But each time she stepped outside her comfort zone, she felt a little stronger. Each time she faced a challenge, she discovered new abilities within herself. Each time she failed, she learned lessons that prepared her for greater success. There were days when she wanted to quit. Days when progress felt slow and obstacles felt overwhelming. Days when old doubts tried to pull her back into familiar patterns. but she kept reminding herself of the emptiness she once felt. She remembered the nights she cried herself to sleep, wishing for a life she was too afraid to pursue, and she refused to go back. Gradually, her confidence began to grow. She started trusting her instincts. She started believing in her worth. She started seeing herself as capable and deserving. Her mindset shifted from survival to growth, from fear to faith, from hesitation to action. And as her mindset changed, her reality began to change with it. New opportunities appeared. New paths opened. New connections formed. She found herself stepping into spaces she once felt unqualified for. She spoke with clarity instead of doubt. She walked with purpose instead of uncertainty. The woman who once felt invisible now carried strength and presence. Her journey was not easy, but it was authentic. Every struggle shaped her character. Every challenge strengthened her resilience. Every victory, no matter how small, reminded her of her power. She learned that setbacks are not signs to stop, but signals to adjust and grow. She learned that patience is part of progress. She learned that persistence turns dreams into reality. And with every passing day, she continued to choose courage. She continued to honor her dreams. She continued to trust her journey. That one decision became the foundation of a new life built on belief, action, and purpose.